Welcome, everyone. It's an absolute delight to be able to welcome you back to the fourth of our eGain 21 webinar series. This is the last one in this particular series. We will have many more sessions looking at all the different capabilities we've spoken about in much greater detail. We'll have a few workshops about how to do some of the things that we've been showing you. But this morning is our platform webinar. If you joined us for any of our earlier ones, you may recall that we spoke about our various hubs. We discussed the Conversation Hub, the Knowledge Hub, and the Analytics Hub. This morning, we peel back a layer and take a look at our platform. And our theme this morning is composing experiences and solutions at will and with ease. As we've had in our last three sessions, we have our CEO, Ashu Roy, starting us off with the first two sections. He's going to take a quick look at what Gartner says businesses want from SaaS providers and how to do it, and particularly how to do it with eGain. He'll set up a whole host of expert presenters from eGain who are going to take us through a tour of different kinds of capabilities that we are working with our clients to build with this brand, with this very, very exciting and sort of newly reconfigured composable platform that we're going to present to you today. Some of our examples are going to be around building an agent experience and automating the tedious parts of that experience, about how to orchestrate conversations by using some of the eGain components that come with our platform and our products, as well as pieces from outside. So take components that may be part of us, but may be part of other third-party tools and create easy being the word of the day. Then we're going to have a presenter who's going to walk us through using our connectors and using them for enhancing agent experiences, customer experiences, as well as sort of adding quick and clever solutions like a translator, for example, right? And finally, the sort of big bang at the end of our presentation is going to be how you can compose a whole new app using these components that you will hear all our different speakers talk about. Very quickly, let me introduce the team. Ashu Roy, I already said he's going to lead us off. He's our CEO. It's been an absolute pleasure having him for this whole series. Dave Needham is head of professional services out of EMEA, has worked with any number of customers over the last several years. So he's going to take us through some stories. Then we come back across the ocean to Vijesh, who's also head of professional services for North America. And then Happy Minocha, who manages all our application development as part of the larger professional services team as well. Finally, we head on back to the UK to Ian Jones, who's head of strategic solutions globally, and Christian, and they're the ones who built a very exciting app, and they're going to walk us through sort of the journey of building that app, as well as all the different components that went into it. We'll take questions at the end, like always. Please find your questions panel at this point. You can type your questions in as the presenters are going through their section so that you don't forget about it by the time we get to the end of our very exciting presentation. Go ahead. And I'd also like to say that we have Arvind Gopal from our product management team also as part of the expert panel along with all our presenters. With that, let me hand it off to Ashu Roy.
Thank you, Manju. I hope you can see me here, and I'm going to start by welcoming you all and start with a simple question, and that is, what do you all, the businesses that we are trying to serve, what are you looking for from SaaS providers? And we, of course, are talking to many of you on a regular basis. We also talk to analysts and try to understand what general priorities are around SaaS provider capabilities, and what is it that you all are looking for more than other things. And Gartner did this really nice survey about 2 years ago, just before the pandemic. And they organize the data and the responses into these top, what they call sum of top three categories. So the four things that came out loud and clear across IT and business was that you, being businesses and government organizations, care about four things. And the priority and the importance of those four items seems to shift a little bit, the order, but the same four are the top four. Depending on who you talk to, if you talk to primarily IT leaders in these organizations, in your businesses, or you take a more IT and business mix of leadership and you ask the same question. So the four things that come out loud and clear are, if you think of it as bookends of the priorities, the top thing that comes out is security of applications, especially in the cloud world. As you're looking at more and more cloud-based capability consumption, security is very high on the list. So that's critical. And then the underlying piece in all this, which is what I'm calling the other bookend, is ease of integration with other applications. So whatever it is that SaaS providers provide, business leaders want it to play well and nice and seamlessly with other applications that they have, both from other vendors as well as from internal development. Inside those two bookends, within those, are the two other key requirements. One is feature richness, so things that you can do with the applications, features, and the second is user experience. Those are the four things: security, ease of integration, features, and quality of experience, user experience. So if that's the starting point, then the question becomes, how do you build that sort of all those four things together for the business world, which is for you? How do we serve that? Again, Gartner's done a really nice job, so I'm going to use a lot of their material with attribution, of course. Talk about how the next generation of platforms need to be architected and how should they serve up these features and user experiences. And the idea behind it is a very simple one. That says, and this is Gartner's word, so I'm going to use it liberally here. They look at businesses in broadly two buckets, because the two buckets tend to behave somewhat differently. There is what you could call the small to mid-sized business bucket, and the other is the enterprise bucket. And the difference, the way it comes across, is that the SMB businesses tend to go with one technology supplier for majority of their CRM requirements. Whereas the enterprise bucket, the larger bucket, which in their perspective, the break point comes in at about $1 billion of revenue per year for a for-profit business. So anything bigger than $1 billion per year of for-profit business tends to get to a level of complexity internally in terms of the business, where multiple CRM technology suppliers and business units are interoperating. And when that happens, the challenge for these businesses and the technology leaders in these businesses is to create an architecture where you can plug and play and you can update and modernize your customer engagement capability without throwing everything out, without a huge forklift at every step of the way. That's not feasible. And that's the technology challenge. How do you play well? How do you orchestrate a multi-supplier approach so that you can connect all these pieces in a way that works for your business in terms of operational experience, in terms of customer experience, and in terms of employee experience? So the prediction that Gartner is bringing to this, which is where we are headed with our conversation here today with the platform and how eGain is presenting our composable experience platform, is Gartner has introduced this notion, which we really like and we subscribe to. And in fact, you will see a lot of that in what we're going to talk about and walk you through with our team of experts, is this notion of a packaged business capability. A packaged business capability, and I'll tell you what that is at a high level, and a collection of those essentially self-organized, logically separable set of APIs, events, optionally user interfaces wrapped around core set of data and services. That's a packaged business capability. Now that's a mouthful. Of course, it's a very precise definition. So in the eGain speak, we call it a dot. Simple. We call it a dot. And we have many dots in our platform. And I'll talk you through some of those. And in order to deliver to the requirements of a large business, which is the enterprise that Gartner talks about, Gartner recommends moving to a model which is a product-based delivery model. And in fact, assess suppliers like eGain, this is for you, right? This is Gartner talking to you. Evaluate people like eGain on how well our applications can be composed by bringing these dots or packaged business capabilities together. So that's kind of the direction that Gartner is pointing toward, to say use these packaged business capabilities. Don't use monolithic solutions, which have to be forklifted. Use a product-based delivery model, not a classic waterfall-based implementation delivery, which tends to slow down the adoption of innovation. And be critical of your vendors, meaning people like eGain, as to how well can their capabilities be composed together. So what you're going to see today from me and my colleagues is example after example, as Manju said, of specific things that we are able to do, tasks, journeys, customer experiences, agent experiences that we are able to string together and compose easily using the dots, using the packaged business capabilities in our platform. And this is a simple diagrammatic way of looking at what a packaged business capability. On the left side, you can see that. It's essentially at the core a bunch of data and services that are exposed through APIs, events, and optionally a user interface. And the idea is that you can hook these together using the APIs and event channels, and occasionally even embed the user interfaces into each other or bring them together for the visual connectivity. And you will see some of both API level integration and connection in the examples we show, as well as some of the UI level connection. Both are equally important. If as an agent, let's say, I cannot just operate through an API and events. I have to ultimately, as a human, see some visual interface. And so the ability to connect those visual interfaces in a nice, seamless, beautiful, let's say, way is something that makes the agent more productive and more empowered. So we do not want to completely walk away from visual interfaces and visual experiences. That is as important as the data-driven API and event-based integration and experience. So as I mentioned, the packaged business capability that Gartner talks about is exactly what we consider an eGain dot in our platform. And the packaged business capability centric application suite, which is a collection of these PVCs, is what we call an eGain app. And in fact, as Manju mentioned, the last session that we'll have, section in this webinar, is going to be talking about how we in our team have put together an entirely new app using this approach by bringing together all the different eGain dots and some third-party capabilities, not just all eGain dots, but a bunch of third-party capabilities and services into the mix. So let's talk about composing with eGain. Our way is simple. We believe in quick value and easy innovation. Those are the two things we are constantly directing our innovation and process and design thinking around. What will deliver quick value and what will be easy to consume and innovate. And our approach here is to deliver that value and innovation using a combination of design, technology, and expertise. We think of these three as somewhat orthogonal and really important to bring together. The idea of outside-in design thinking, starting with the experience first, either it is of the customer, or it's of the agent, or it is of the business. All those three are relevant. We need to make sure that all those three are factored as you're thinking about composing these solutions. Using technology is obvious, and the expertise that we bring to bear, and you will see in the new app that we're talking about here, that there are some know-how elements that we're starting to weave into these apps, which are turnkey, which are out of the box going to be deployable without having to feed in a whole bunch of know-how into it. So software capabilities are moving up this chain where you don't have to have just a bunch of bits where you have to put in all the know-how into it. We're starting to move up where the new app we'll be talking about is a turnkey solution which has all the know-how built into it. And we have done this in partnership with someone who has that expertise and know-how. So increasingly moving up the chain so that you as a business can consume this, a verticalized solution specific to certain journeys, specific to certain domains. That's the way the world is moving, and we are leading that. And do that on a composable, secure platform. It's important to talk about security in the same breath as composability, because when you're composing, you're bringing a lot of disparate elements across our platform and other capabilities, and it's vital that when we are talking about these capabilities coming together, that it be done in a secure way. As we know, that is sort of the start of the journey. You've heard from the past webinars that we have been going about talking about our conversation hub, our knowledge hub, our analytics hub. Those are hubs which have out-of-the-box applications, lots of pre-built configurable applications that you can turn on. All of those are built off of a core platform. And that platform allows you to bring in, it's an open platform. So it allows you to bring in your own channels of connection with customers, your own bots, your own agents, your own desktop applications. We can embed into them visually. So there's a lot of flexibility in that platform. And it comprises very logically of these areas where there is a section around ensuring security and compliance. There's the idea of being able to administer that platform in a unified way. The idea of being able to take advantage of all the packaged capabilities, the dots in the platform. And we'll talk to that as we go through these different use cases. And to have a lot of pre-built connectors into what I would call are the larger ecosystem platforms in the market around CRM, around contact center, around web experience, right? And continue to have that connector library grow so that as you bring in something like eGain into your business, you can connect into a Salesforce or into a Microsoft Dynamics or into a ServiceNow or into SAP. You don't have to worry about having to build those capabilities again. Of course, we have the APIs, and if there's another one, like a bespoke CRM that you are working with, we can connect through APIs. But the idea that this connector library continues to grow in our marketplace helps ensure that the speed of consuming that innovation and getting to value is maintained. So let's move across and start with what I would call table stakes first. And that is, with our platform, you get the best-in-class security. And you get your SOC 2 compliance, you get your PCI, you get your HIPAA, you can go down that list. Notice we continue to add more and more certifications while maintaining the existing ones. So we got done with things like HIPAA and GDPR and PCI and SOC 2 a long time ago. We, a couple of years ago, added COPPA. Last year, actually turn of this year, we added HITRUST. And now we are looking at imminently close to getting the FedRAMP certification. So we continue to add these new security and InfoSec compliance things that ensure that you are getting the best possible platform in the cloud to compose your applications. The dots that we present, this is the exciting part, because the dots that we present are rich, and they go across the 3 hubs that we have, which is our Conversation Hub, the Knowledge Hub, and the Analytics Hub. So Conversation Hub helps you connect your customers with your business, either through automated self-service or escalated conversation with agent assistance. All of that is managed by the Conversation Hub in an omni-channel way, where there is connecting into these specific channels, mostly digital, but also including things like IVR. So all the existing channels are maintained. To be able to route those conversations and messages, to be able to add value to those messages, they could be translated, you could be measuring sentiment in real time, and you'll see examples of that as we go through. The point here is that all these items that you see in the hubs and the service boxes or circles are all dots. And each of these dots has APIs and events and sometimes an optional UI so that you can compose your agent and customer experiences by connecting these pieces together. So with that said, let me hand it over to my colleague, David, and he is going to talk about a set of examples that we are now working with and in some cases have already implemented for our clients. David?
Thanks, Ashu. Yes, so I wanted to show you some real-world examples of the composable architecture in action, hopefully give you a flavor of what's possible, and in particular, show you how easy it is to achieve quick integration with this approach. So I've got 3 use cases to present, looking at the agent experience, looking at the end-to-end automation, and looking at the technical experience. And there are some helpful here. So the first is the way we can connect eGain dots and third-party dots with this architecture. The second is that this architecture is essentially event-driven, where eGain raises an event and a process is registered to consume the event and perform some action, typically calling an API, for example. And the third is about leveraging existing eGain capability to create new, innovative solutions. So this first use case is an integration with MS Dynamics. We've got 2 levels of integration here. So first, we're using our Duo module to sync the advisor desktop screen with the dynamic screen. So this is an integration on the client side, or at the glass, as it's sometimes referred to. So as the agent navigates through the advisor desktop, the dynamic screen is being updated in real time to show corresponding customer and case details. So if you imagine the agent selects a chat from their inbox, this is going to raise an event in the desktop. The Duo module traps the event and passes a message to Dynamics with details of the customer. So Dynamics can then use these details to search for the customer and display the corresponding customer and case details. So this is keeping the 2 screens in sync with no additional input from the agent. And this has transformed the agent experience because they don't need to navigate 2 separate systems. Obviously, this works best where the agent has 2 screens to work with. So this is using a simple JavaScript messaging protocol on the client side between the Advisor desktop and a browser-based app, in this case, Dynamics. And we provide a JavaScript file to include in the third-party app to handle the messaging. And by the way, this messaging is two-way as well, so the Advisor desktop can receive back details from Dynamics to add to the current activity, for example. So the second level of integration here is on the server side. So this is updating the relevant Dynamics case with details of a closed email or chat activity. So here we're registering a cloud process. Actually, it's an AWS Lambda function to trap the close event in the Advisor desktop. So we can then call the eGain API to get details of the activity. And finally, call the Dynamics API to update the relevant case in Dynamics with the email content or the chat transcript details. So this cloud process could be developed and maintained by your own development teams or by a partner and hosted in your own cloud environment or in your own network. So there's no custom code running on the eGain servers with this architecture. Or the interaction with eGain is via public APIs. So this is what makes it such an open architecture for third-party development. So I hope you've got a sense here of the composable nature of the approach. So we provide the basic building blocks, the events, the APIs that you need to quickly connect the dots between eGain and third-party apps. Next slide, please, Ashley. Okay, so this second use case shows how we can add a robotic process automation app to automate some of the tasks that agents might need to complete. So in this case, using an AI-guided help session in the Advisor desktop. So imagine you are an agent on a call with a customer. You're using an AI process to diagnose an issue. And you get to a point in the dialogue where you need to order a replacement part. So you don't want to get distracted by having to switch to another application. You want to stay focused on the customer and you want to minimize any additional call handle time. So we can kick off a robotic process to pick up the order task in the background and just let the agent know when this has been completed. So we have all the details we need for this call, either from customer data passed in at launch, or from answers to questions that we've gained as part of the guided help dialogue. And the way we achieve this is to create an RPA article type. And eGain authors can apply this article at the point we want to run the robotic process. So the article is going to provide the event effectively that triggers the call to the RPA, collate the required data. So the integration with the RPA in this case is handled on the client side. But it would also be possible to use a server-side approach as well for this via a cloud process using data adapters, for example, embedded in the article. And one of the really nice features, I think, of this approach is that we can also handle asynchronous messages back from the RPA. So imagine the RPA needs some more detail from the customer to complete the order task. The response from the RPA can answer a guided help question, which can inject the request for the missing RPA data into the ongoing dialogue. So the agent and the customer have a seamless experience. So again, this is following an event-driven process model where the heavy lifting is done outside of the eGain server. So this final use case is about leveraging our machine learning intent engine and customer data lookup to make an informed decision about some mail routing. So the idea here is to use all the context we have to deliver the email to the correct agent queue. So we use an event, in this case in the inbound workflow, to trigger a call to a cloud service. The cloud service calls the machine learning model to extract the customer intent from the email subject. And this model will have been trained to recognize intent from real-world email subject data and to deliver a classification and a confidence score. So it's the same intent engine we use with our virtual assistant. And I think this is a great example of joining dots in eGain by using existing components like the intent engine in an innovative new way. So we have a good idea of the genuine customer intent from the email subject. We can supplement that with details of the customer. So, for example, if we identify that the intent is around a policy question, we can look up customer policy details. So we can add the intent classification, the confidence, and the policy type to the email activity, and then use this data in a branch node to determine the queue for handling emails for this customer policy type. So in this case, the event is triggered from a node in the workflow. We're making a synchronous call to a cloud process, which gets the required data and returns it to the workflow for routing. So I think just to summarize this section, in all these examples, we're using the basic building blocks of the composable architecture, the events, the eGain APIs, serverless cloud processes, and we're using them to join eGain components in new ways, or to join eGain with third-party components using APIs. And because the heavy lifting is done outside of the eGain servers, it can be implemented quickly and maintained by any resource really with the required skills. For me, that's the power of the eGain composable architecture. Okay, that's it for me. Thanks, Ashu.
Thank you, David. We'll come back now to Florida to Vijesh Padmanabhan. Vijesh, all yours.
Thank you, Manju. Hey, everyone. Nice to meet you all virtually today. I'm going to talk about how we have leveraged the eGain Composable architecture and our conversational hub to integrate multiple third-party bots and provide that much-needed cohesive conversational interaction between the customer and the agent. Next, please. So, as most of you are already aware, right, there are many bot providers in the market. A lot of our customers have already done the investment in these different bots. And when they bring in a new solution, a new omni-channel solution or a conversational solution for their end consumer customer service, there is a lot of heavy lifting that is needed from the customer side to integrate their existing investment in their bot with their omni-channel solution. This involves multiple API calls, passing context, and whatnot. And in most of the cases, what happens is that even though we were able to get the basic integration up in place, but the end experience for both the customer and agent is not tied together. The bot has its own conversation with the customer. It escalates to an agent. Agent has to start the conversation all over again with the customer. And there is no cohesive nature in this whole journey. And this is where the eGain Composable architecture and the conversation hub comes into play, where we have streamlined this entire experience for your end customers to bring in any bot of their choice and plug and play with our conversation hub so that you have that single seamless integration between the customer interaction and the agent escalation. Next, please. So what we do is that our conversational hub can interact with any third-party bot through pre-built connectors, as well as our built-in virtual assistant. And it not only provides you that integration capability, but it overlays the additional AI and machine learning, which will help you to do specific routing and integration with the eGain Advisor desktop, which gives you that consistent interaction between the customer and agent. David, my colleague David, talked about some of those composable architecture-based integrations in the previous examples. So that's where the power of Conversation Hub comes in, where we can easily do a plug and play for your customers to bring in any third-party bot of their choice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through two examples where we have implemented that for some of the leading customers in the market. Next, please. So the example that I want to talk to you about is an integration with what IBM Watson. So IBM Watson was deployed at one of the state health departments. They have been leveraging this bot capability for almost a year and a half. They ran into some of the logistics issues, especially around the latency in the response, the ability to pass the context from the bot to the agent, and the whole user experience for their end citizens who are interacting with the bot. So they came to us, and we integrated their Watson through our composable architecture, where our conversation hub, leveraging the Watson APIs and our client app architecture, was able to plug and play the Watson virtual assistant to provide that seamless integration of Watson in their chat environment. So this not only provided them an easy, reusable, and a scalable solution, but also the key thing here is that it provided that seamless escalation for the live agents. So when the customers are interacting with Watson, there is the whole back and forth between Watson and the customer. And when the intent of the customer is talked to a live agent, eGain Composable architecture and the eGain Conversational Hub is able to seamlessly escalate that interaction from the customer to a live agent while passing the entire context from IBM Watson, so that the agents now get a complete context as to what the intent of the customer was. One key thing to keep in mind here is that now the agent sees all these conversations in a single pane of glass. They don't have to go to different systems to understand the context of the conversation, and everything happens through pretty much plug and play deployment. So this connector is available for your end customers. So any customers who are leveraging Watson can use this connector through eGain and easily integrate IBM Watson with the omnichannel solution of their choice. Let's go to the next slide, please. The next example that I want to talk to you about is that where Conversational Hub not only integrates the bot, but also integrates multiple bots for the same conversational flow. So in this example that we did for a big, so in this example where what we have done for one of a big security firm is that the Conversational Hub of eGain not only integrated with Google Dialogflow, but we also integrated with other third-party solutions like real-time machine translation, sentiment analyzers, and gave the holistic experience for the agent and the customer. So when a customer is interacting with the agent through the eGain Conversational Hub, they not only are able to leverage Google Dialogflow as an example, but also leverage other feature functionalities like real-time machine translation. So you are now able to converse in the language of your choice, while the agents are able to get all those interactions in the language of their choice and vice versa. And also leverage other third-party solutions like sentiment analyzer so that you are able to have a real-time view into the sentiment of the customer while you are chatting with the customer. So this is another example as to where it is just not a unilateral interaction with a bot, but we are able to integrate with multiple bots and technologies to provide that single experience for your customers as part of the conversation interaction. Next slide, please. These are some of these screenshots that we have, which talks about how we have deployed Google Dialogflow. We have deployed real-time machine translation at one of the large security and virus provider, and this is a testament as to how easy it is to leverage the eGain Conversational Hub and give your end customers the integrated experience without having to develop everything from scratch. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijesh. We'll go now to Happy Minocha, who's going to take us through all the connectors. Happy, you're up.
Thank you, Manju. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. So today I'm going to introduce you all to a set of rich connectors come along with eGain Composable Experience Platform. As pointed out earlier by Ashu, the Gartner predicts that the package business capabilities consumption will increase from 3% to 25% by the end of 2022. That's a massive change how digital transformation projects will be executed in near future or are being executed. Our customers and customer experience industry at large would require the applications to be composed seamlessly. At eGain, we have been doing investments to build a rich ecosystem of these connectors, which can be plugged and play without requiring any new development. Our goal is to allow businesses to compose experience, then build experience using eGain dots. Businesses like you have made investments in applications such as CRM, contact center, workforce experience, and the voice of customer application, or few others. We want to ensure that our customers and the users of these applications get a personalized and seamless experience while using with eGain hubs as well as the eGain Composable Experience Platform. All of these connectors are available across these three categories, primarily into CRM and the contact centers, and then few other systems such as as I said, workforce management, voice of customer, and the content management system. So let me give a quick peek into some of these connectors. Next slide, please. So first one is the eGain for Salesforce. Essentially, it guides sales. This connector guides Salesforce user in a step-by-step manner with the contextual help. And it's very important that when these users are using these two applications coming from different sources, the context from one application is passed to other applications very seamlessly. In the simple, this component of the connector is essentially you can place in, any of the Salesforce clouds such as sales, service, financial, etc. And you can configure, what context you want to pass from Salesforce to eGain Knowledge Hub, and this connector will guide this user through the journey to resolve customer inquiries or any other object such as opportunities, leads, or so on. This connector is also integrated with the Conversation Hub, where any interaction happening in eGain is seamlessly stored in Salesforce, as well as it also provides a view of the conversation happening outside eGain to the agent within eGain Advisor desktop. This connector is available on App Exchange. You can go give it a spin and do a trial and connect and see what experiences it provides to your users. Next slide. This is just a screenshot of how eGain Knowledge Hub appears within Salesforce Service Console, where you can see how the context is being passed from a case to eGain Knowledge, and it pre-answers some of the questions, and then guides the agent to complete a journey or resolve a query for a customer. Next. Similarly, you can connect the eGain Knowledge Hub and the Conversation Hub to Microsoft Dynamics 365. It is certified and available on Microsoft App Source and easy to consume or deploy with your eGain instance. It also provides an embedded view of the knowledge, at the same time stores all your interactions in Dynamics. Next slide. This is just a screenshot of how eGain Knowledge Hub appears with Microsoft Dynamics. You can also attach a solution to the case and for analytics as well as for auditing purpose. Next. The SAP is, SAP eGain for SAP C4C is one of the recent certified connectors and is available on the SAP store. It is integrated with SAP C4C, and you can configure this connector into SAP Customer Hub, Live Activity Center, tickets within the SAP C4C solution. Next. And this is just a quick peek into the how it appears. It's a seamlessly integrated. You can brand it according to your look and feel you are providing to your agents. Next. The next one is the ServiceNow. It is well integrated into eGain, ServiceNow Classic interface as well as ServiceNow agent customer service agent workspace. You can get instant answer with configurable context of from the customer interaction as well as any ITSM tickets or any other objects such as change requests, etc. It essentially empower your agents with the AI powered guidance and help them to reduce the average handle time as well as improve your improve the FCR of your contact center. Or any other line of business where you have deployed these applications. Next, please. We also this is just a screenshot of how it appears in the ServiceNow. Next. We have connected for the Adobe Experience Manager. It essentially provides you drag and drop capabilities where you can build the new experiences and you can consume content from eGain knowledge as well as from external sources, and you leverage Adobe Experience Manager for branding, styling, and the layout changes or structuring capabilities. And you can mix the content from eGain as well as from other sources. And this connector is also available from Adobe Exchange Marketplace. This is all I had to share. This is a screenshot of how eGain components appear in the Adobe. Manju, to you.
Thank you, Happy. And now back over to the UK to Ian Jones and Christian Verbois, who's going to show us the virtual financial coach.
Thanks, Manju. Yes, in this section, we're going to be talking about an application we call the Virtual Financial Coach. It's being built by eGain and a company called GreenPath. GreenPath are specialists in financial wellness and debt coaching. So they bring 60 years of expertise in how to help these kind of situations. But the thing for us is this is really quite a new type of application. Although, on the superficially, it might look like a chatbot or a virtual assistant, the actual engagement with the customer is going to be quite different. You're going to have, the sessions are typically going to be quite a bit longer than a VA session. And then you're going to come back repeatedly, step at a time until you get towards your financial goals. So it's a different type of application. And as we were building it, we realized that as we went through from the minimum viable product to version 1 and version 2, we're going to need to swap components in and out. And so that's why we're showing it here. So if we pop along to the next one, I will talk about the need for financial coaching. So, there's a lot of people out there who need credit or debt advice at the moment, particularly in the last couple of 1 to 2 years because of the pandemic. So there's lots of people who need advice but don't know they need it, and particularly around credit. And there's tons and tons of information on the web in all kinds of forums. But the studies say that stuff doesn't do the job. It's not effective for some of the reasons shown on the screen. It's either too generic, it's there to put adverts in front of you, people are embarrassed and don't want to approach somebody, or it's just bit confusing. So there's a big need, there's a lot of content, but that content isn't doing its job. So, and obviously having a conversation with a financial expert would be fantastic, but it's not a viable option such large numbers and such situations. So there's a lot of evidence, though, that people will engage. They prefer to be slightly anonymous when they talk about their financial difficulties. So a virtual coach seems to be an option, and that's the way we've gone. And provided it's interactive enough, we start to see some results. So if we just go to the next one. Yeah, so at the heart of this, I wanted to start in the center here. At the heart of the application is quite a large AI-guided process flow. And this is the stuff we built with the 60 years of experience that GreenPath have got. It's all the different routes to fit with all the different circumstances. And layered on top of that is the ability to engage, to listen to what the customer's saying, to gather information, to make sure the next question is contextually right with the right level of explanation. And we build towards a personalized action plan. So if we go to the next one. Then for the next one, you'll see that although that's at the core of it, that we've got an AI-guided process, delivering that to the customer, we're using some of the features of our VA tool. So we're using the virtual assistant or bot. That gives us control of the dialogue. It allows us to capture data. It allows us to launch the AI-guided flows at the right point, in the right entry point. It allows us to do some branding for each of the credit unions who might choose to buy it, and allows us to store data relevant to those different ones. So as you can see here, we can either launch this from a static link or something here that's what we call an offer. So when the conditions are right and the offer pops on the screen, you can see the branded offer there. When you click on that, you get to the first page. And at this stage, I think one of the things to say about this, one of the factors of users of this type of systems, they're not willing to download an app, not at this stage. They don't really want to sign up for anything. So for the very first version of the product, it's got to be very little drag. You just click on it and we're straight into a discussion. Anything more than that would perhaps lead to too much of an abandonment rate. So in course of that, we're having to store a little bit of stuff in cookies for local storage so that we can, when the customer comes back, we can see how they are. So thanks, and the next one. So this next slide's got a build, so I'm looking forward to that. So here we go. We start on the screen, you get the offer, and we click the Get Started button, so that's great. We get to where I need to answer some, accept various things. Then we're into the dialogue, and you can see there, if you can see it, that although we're trying to personalize it, so we're asking for a name, and in this case, someone's just given us random typing. But one of the things I'll come back to is, one of the key points of this kind of stuff is it smart or not? So we've built in modules that can tell whether it's random text, and then we say, okay, random text, no problem, off we go. So then you have some choices, and then we go to the next click, and we'll see that from those choices, we go through and offer you various ways of going forward. There are some text questions as well, allow you to do that. And then finally, we get to a stage where we take the data you've given and we do some calculations on that. So we go out to external systems and we tell you in this case what your credit utilization is based on the data you've given us. And we tell you what it should be, and we tell you how much you should have on your credit card at the end of the month to do that. So that kind of stuff allows us to take you through the journey and building it out into little sections, which are bite-sized. Some nice things about the UI here that we need to put in, that, you know, those are different sized bubbles there on the screen. And so we need to make sure that the screen only moves at the right pace based on the size of the last bubble. So we're trying to keep pace with you reading. So if we go on to the next slide, we'll look at the where we're going in terms of this. This is the where we think we'll get it in about a few months' time. And it's just to show you that all the different components you're probably going to need for this. So it's starting at the bottom there. We've got various input channels at the moment. That's basically through the VA, but obviously the number of other channels available. We need to control the dialogue. We need to use machine learning for classification. We also need to use natural language processing, NLP, for looking for sentiment and emotion. And obviously we've got the reasoning engine in there. Then we can link out to external content and data sources. And we've got the escalation route, so we can take someone to a chat session if they are vulnerable or nervous about their situation. Sitting on top of that layer, we've got all the different journey steps that we can reuse, and then we link out to other components which can send text messages and reply to text messages. Then on top of that, the stuff where it gets more sophisticated, we need to monitor how someone is interacting with the coach. We need to check whether the advice is relevant to their context. We need to check whether they are behaving as we'd expect. Are they going too quickly? Are they going too slow? We need to look out for emotional cues and inputs that tell us somebody's in a, maybe in a vulnerable situation. And then we need to monitor whether the outcome we're giving is the right kind of advice for their situation. So we've got a number of things to look at there. And if we look at the system schematic on the next slide, you'll see that this is the way the minimum viable product. As I said, we don't know entirely how people are going to interact. So we've started small and launched something to about 50 or so credit unions, just so that we can measure the usage. And what we've got there, as I said, we're not going to do any authentication. We're not going to do anything, but we do want to link out to a name checker, an external software that we can bring in so that we can check for whether it's a valid name or not. And I'll show you in a minute that that can check for various things. We've done various user interface enhancements, and then we're using various Lambda functions to calculate the max credit and things like that. And we're using the natural language to check for any text question responses to see whether or not there's vulnerability or something we need to offer an escalation. So if we just do the next step of the build, you'll see here we've got someone who's typed in that they're named Darth Vader. And this is one of the things that where people make it, it's a micro moment. It's a moment of truth for people using a VA. If you say, what's your name? And you say, why do you need to know that? If the system says, hello, why do you need to know that? What can I do for you today? That's kind of a sense that there's not a lot of value in it. So we've linked out to some third-party components to do all kinds of things. We can spot famous people and so on. And then we can just use that, using it initially to show that, to get people to realize, the system is listening to what you're saying. So therefore, it's a good thing to do. Okay, and then the next part of the build, you can see there that when we go through, having gone through the session itself, we then offer them to offer the user to give us their mobile number, and then we'll send them by text a link to a summary of the interaction and links to further information. So that's happening there. Now, if we go to the next slide, we'll also have a change of voice, and my colleague Christian will say a little bit about the technological side of this. Thanks, Christian.
Thanks, Ian. So as Ian has explained, the user experience that we are able here to deliver is a result of connecting multiple components in a very intelligent but also easy way. So I'm coming to an example that you can see on the slide here on the name checker. So as you could see in the previous slide, the kind of intelligence that we can show when the customer is typing a random string or maybe a famous name is made possible thanks to an easy connection to a serverless function, in this case, which we expose through an API. And doing so, we can then surface that intelligent response. Now, down the line in the process, you would also see that all driven from that central decision engine, which is really the core. We connect at key moments to components that we need at the moment we need them. So imagine your conversation is like a spider of multiple reusable entities. It is the decision engine that decides when we will, for example, check if there is something randomly typed, or later in the flow, as per slide here, will also decide what is the best moment to suggest to a consumer, for example, to give his telephone number so that we leverage the workflow engine, so eGain's workflow engine, so that that same customer can receive a text, for example, in 2 days from now, with a gentle reminder, hey, the coach suggested you to, well, I suggested you to check the errors, eventual errors on your credit report. Well, that text that the customer can receive 2 days later, well, that text is basically initiated from that link, from that connection that we use in the overall experience. So On the right, top right-hand side, you see that most of those connections are exposed through APIs. And we see that in the name checker, or let's say to make that name checker possible, we use some functions, but also an external database with with a long list of famous names, so that we can basically process the string and handle an intelligent response. Yes, back over to you, Ian.
Thanks very much. Yes, so the MVP worked very well from our point of view. So if we go to the next slide, the MVP told us that our customers, the credit unions, are finding it useful, and our end customers, we can see from the NPS scores we're getting that they're finding the advice very helpful. So now we're at the version 1 build. So what we've done here is we want to get a bit more customer information involved. So we're using authentication, allowing people to log in to create an account. They can also stay with the anonymous one, but we do make it clear there'll be more value if they log in. Once they log in, we can start to capture customer data. And the other big thing we're able to do over on the right-hand side is link out to a credit agency, take the name and address, do some validation, bring back the real-time credit score, and about 20 or 30 different attributes that tell you why the score is like that. So that allows us to then give them some real immediate information on why their credit score is where it is. It allows us to then go into some detailed financial advice. So at this stage, what we're actually doing is we're breaking customers, we're categorizing into one of about 4 or 5 buckets. So there's a group of people who have a credit score of 0 or next to nothing. Those are people who've never had any interaction with a credit agency. They're called a thin file. So for them, it's a long, slow journey to build up credit, and we advise them on how to do that, what type of cards to apply for, what to do. And that's a 6 months to 12 months journey to start to build some credit. There's another group of people who have got a low score because they had some real difficulty in the past, maybe redundancy or bankruptcy or something, but they're now under control. And for them, we can give some solid advice. We can explain that you can improve your credit score, but it's not going to be dramatically fast. Then I think the largest bucket of people is people who've got a lowish score because they just understand how credit works. They've got too much on their cards, they're occasionally missing payments and so on. So they have a great opportunity to rapidly increase their score and therefore get things like mortgages and loans that they wouldn't otherwise be entitled to. And another bucket is people who are in a bit disorganized financially. They're missing payments, and that kind of stuff is really hurting their credit. So we can take each of those groups, we can take them on a bespoke journey, giving their exact data, and then we can build them and get them to the right answer. And as previously, I'll just step aside for a minute, and my colleague will say a little bit more about the technical issues.
Yes, thank you, Ian. So as we said before, this virtual financial coach experience has been built through different stages. The first initial build, as an example, was using what we call the name checker, and where we already explained how that basically functions. Now, in the next build, what we are just testing as we speak now, we have connected an external user store, whereby now the user can create an account, register, and we can then subsequently use that robust and secure authentication mechanism to then have the advantage of that customer profile. By using a customer profile with that VFC authentication element you see on the slide, we also disabled the name checker. That's really what is nice in here. We enabled one component in the initial build. We very easily disabled it and put another component in place, which is an external user store. In our case, that external user store is Azure. We have chosen for that one, but we can perfectly leverage any similar or even our customers or partners external stores, so that customers can have their account, register with the coach, and we can then, again, thanks to that central decision engine, decide when we link to another component in order, for example, to store information about our customer, or even to pull information so that the overall experience is enriched with personalized context. As you imagine, when you come to the coach, having your own profile, the coach can say, "Hey, John, it's nice to see you again. I can see last time we chatted about some difficulties to obtain a loan. Is that the same that you want to discuss today? And the coach can basically then give a really personalized approach and advice. And that is really possible thanks to that easy connections to the external authentication mechanism at first, but also to that external database where we can store that personal information about the customer. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And could we advance to the next slide? And indeed, the next one. Okay. So here you see how the interface looks like. So because we've now got the integration with credit score, we can make the experience very rich. We can say exactly what your score is today, and then we can tell you which of the dozen or so factors affecting your score is hurting you, and then we can build a plan exactly how to address that. So if we go to the next store now, we will talk a little bit about what we've got in mind for the future. So you see in the middle there the current application, but the things around the side in the white boxes are the areas where we can now go from this point. So starting over on the left, we can certainly start to add additional interfaces. We can add an app interface, or we can use speech to text or text to speech if we want to allow someone to use that for accessibility or other means. As we come around to the authentication and security, it's going to be very easy for us to add biometrics if you're using on your phone, or two-factor authentication, so that you're feeling confident that your details are very secure. In this kind of environment, there's lots and lots of external calculators. What kind of mortgage can I afford? What kind of house can I afford? What might my repayments be? So we're going to include a lot of those in, so that we just take the data through the coach, pass it through to the calculator, and return that stuff, so that we can give someone an idea of, okay, you're going to need to have this much cash to qualify for this kind of loan, and your payments are going to be at a certain amount. The other interesting thing we can do is add a different user interface modules, but also, as was hinted at earlier, we can use real-time translation, and we can start to offer this in different languages. So particularly in the US, Spanish is going to be our first secondary language to offer, and we'll be able to do that with no changes to the core structure, just adding in a module that does the two-way translation. We'll probably swap out our nudge scheduler for something more scalable. And again, that'll be nice to do. But then the stuff that's kind of interesting is, as you can imagine, as you go through this process with thousands and thousands of clients, you assemble a great deal of data. So we're envisaging that we'll add in machine learning classifiers to look at the usage and say, right, is somebody going down a journey where they may abandon the coach, in which case we will intervene and try to keep them on track. Or even more useful, we'll be able to use the thousands of data items that are available in a credit score to more finely classify the kind of right advice for them. So we see it as very useful to be able to add in modules that build on our data scores and factor those in. So if we move to the final slide for me, you can see here that this is the current state of the coach with a summary of the kind of information. But what we found by using this composable approach, we've been able to build it very quickly. We've been able to adapt the coach very quickly based on how it's used and what's available. And it's still got the AI guided knowledge at the core, and that's always going to be the main thing that drives the value. But being able to get that knowledge to allow it to be reached by more people in better situations and allow them to come back and build on over time, that's been really useful to us. So that's been the really beneficial part of our journey. And we'll continue to do this as the requirements keep changing.
Thank you, Ian. At this point, I'd like to announce that we are taking questions. We do have a few minutes. All the presenters are still online, and we have representation from product management as well. So pull out your questions panel and go ahead and type your question in, and I'll take them. And while I wait for the questions to come in, I'd like to announce that all the recordings of the webinars are available. The last 3 have already been posted. They're available at egain.com/webinars. So go ahead and catch up if you haven't been able to attend any of those. We also want to invite you to continue this conversation at our community. So if you haven't joined our community, now is as good a time as any. So go over to community.egain.com and start talking to us. If you'd just like to send us an email, just use easy@egain.com. Send us an email and we'll get back to you. And it could be about anything as simple as, hey, I've been thinking about some of these things you talked about. How do I get started? Or it could be that you're in the middle of a project and you want to, consider options from us. So whatever it is, as simple as sending us a note at easy@egain.com. We do have a question. Do we have a release date scheduled yet for these features? Who would like to take that? From what I understand, these are all actually projects that are in progress. We're working with clients to build this. So technically, you can do this today. So if you have something particular in mind, just go ahead and reach out to us and we can get that conversation started. So we haven't really shown you anything today that we cannot already do. Anyone want to add to that? That's great. Question on gamification. Gamification was a hot topic a few years ago. Is this still a growing focus for contact centers or not so much? Happy, would you like to take that? Maybe give us a sense.
Sure, Manju. So yes, the gamification is still a hot topic, I would say, and we are working, with some of our partners to see, how we can bring, gamification, who can, or other providers, how they can compose the solution with our platform.
Thanks, Happy. Last call for questions. If not, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all our panelists. Ashu, very special thank you to you for joining us during these 4 different webinars in our eGain 21 series. With this, we wrap the series and we'll be back with more details, more demos. But if you haven't yet visited our website, make sure you go over there, take a look at all the recordings of the previous webinars. There's also a new in 21 that's available. So if you haven't seen that, go take a look at that. Send us a note, easy@egain.com. Come to our community. And thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day. Or if it's the end of the day for you, have a good evening. Bye.